All right, CR. A formative movie for me, a formative movie for you.
Yeah.
Really a formative movie for me because I saw it in the theater when it came out and I was like, this is kind of changing my life. And then Craig Horlbeck producing, usually for us, but not today, when we made him watch it. And he was like, if I saw this when I was 15, this movie would have changed my life. And I was like, yeah, welcome to Risky Business. So many places to start. This movie launched so many different things. Where do you want to start?
You want to start with Cruise? Or do you want to start with 80s teen sex comedies?
Well, I'll just give you the list of things this movie launched and why this was always on the short list of rewatchables. It launched Tom Cruise, who is now, this is his 14th rewatchable movie that we've done.
Mm-hmm.
Leads the league. He's the Babe Ruth of the rewatchables. It launched Rebecca De Mornay. It launched Joey Pants.
It did.
In my opinion, I think it did. It launched Bronson Pinchot. It launched Curtis Armstrong, a.k.a. Booger in Revenge of the Nerds. It launched Steve Tisch and John Abnett, who did a lot of good producing stuff.
Yeah.
You could make a case it launched Ray-Bans.
I'll hear it. I'll hear it out. Yeah.
I know they existed, but I think this was the most famous movie version of Ray-Bans ever. It launched David Geffen's film company. And it was the apex of teen 80s comedies, which was a whole era in itself. So you go.
Okay, so I think there's a bunch of different ways to go here, but I think that this movie is also like way deeper than just being a teen sex comedy. And that's what makes it a rewatchable, is that there's lots of like horny movies from this time period that you can go to if you just want the jokes. But this movie is so perceptive and smart about capitalism, about what it was like in 1983, about Reagan being president, about the kind of values that were being given to high school kids at that time. And I was like a little obviously younger. This movie comes out when I'm going into school, like when I'm going into kindergarten.
Right.
But I still feel like the residual vibes by the time I hit my teens in the 90s of like getting out from under this movie and a lot of the stuff it espouses and going back to it. It's just as fresh as like the first day I saw it, where you're like, not only is this thing just made within an inch of its life, it's so well done.
Yeah.
It's so deep.
It is. And it's so different than every other movie that came out that was trying to do a lot of the same things. And that's why this movie immediately became beloved. It was like, oh, you think it's this, but this is actually a real movie. Like, I mean, could you say this could have been if Michael Mann ever made a 1980s teen sex comedy?
I was joking with you about this. This is like basically Thief, but horny. It's like Thief in high school.
Horny 18-year-old thief.
A lot of the like trappings that would, Mann starts out messing around with the Tangerine Dream music, with the kind of cinematography that he's using. And it's also the Chicago setting, which is interesting. There is like a definite like through line from this to this guy, Paul Brickman, who's kind of only done one or two things over the course of his career. But this movie was basically like this noir, super stylized vision of teen male sexuality and frustration. And it's so much more interesting than it has any right to be. If it was just high school kid nervous about getting into college, opens a brothel in his house while his parents are away on vacation, I'm sure it would have been fine. I'm sure it would have been like, that's a funny movie. That's like Porky's. That's like whatever. But instead, it's like this incredibly deep film about like basically the hollowing out of the American dream.
Yeah, I'm with you. One of the things that's shocking when you watch it.
Did you think that, or were you just like, this is like a sex fantasy? Like when you first saw it, were you like, there's something else up with this movie?
All right, so I'm almost 15 when I see this, and this movie came out, and then All the Right Moves came out a couple months later, and this movie became a hit. So then All the Right Moves became, we talk about this sometimes on the pod, the next one.
Yeah.
Where it's like somebody becomes a star, whatever the next movie they put out, people are going to go. The best example ever was Julia Roberts in Dying Young.
Yeah.
Where it's like, or Flatliners, that whole run, anything she did, people are like, oh, Julia Roberts in it, I'm going. When I saw it, had really no background with Cruise other than
Taps, right?
Yeah, he was like
Had
the
you
crazy
seen
guy in
Taps?
Taps. Yeah. But I barely remembered he was in it. I didn't know who it was. And then he was in Losing It with Shelley Long, which I think during the early days of HBO was on a bunch, but certainly never thought, anything major. But it was so clear he was a star. And part of the marketing of this movie was like, this guy's a star. Rebecca De Mornay, you've never seen her in a movie before. She's also a star. This is a smart version of all the crappy teen sex movies that everybody's been making for the last couple of years. It's competing against, people always mention Porky's, but it's also like, you know, Class with Andrew McCarthy and Rob Lowe, and Losing It, which Cruise was in. And so there's this whole genre. They're making those kind of movies. Private School with Matthew Modine. But then there are also the John Hughes Fast Times era is also happening concurrently. And this is the only movie that kind of merged both worlds, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, Fast Times obviously has its fair share of like horniness and sex comedy, but it's also like really deep. It has like these really heartbreaking moments in it.
But you wouldn't say Fast Times was like exceptionally well crafted. You know, it's a really good movie, but this movie is like stylish. Risky Business is like, so a couple of the scenes, even like when she has sex with him for the first time, Rebecca De Mornay.
And the doors blow open, yeah.
Yeah, and the doors blow open. We go, they're fucking on the staircase, and the camera's panning through all his childhood photos. And then it cuts to her riding him on the chair, but it's like, this is like Miami Vice shit.
And the American flag is blowing in the background on the television. You know what this is? I would say, honestly, I'm sure if people are listening to this, they've seen it already. But there's almost like, you remember how like in 8th grade, they teach you Lord of the Flies to start seeing like, you know, symbolism and subtext and metaphor and stuff like that. There's a lot of that in this movie. Where you can be like, Joel's last name is Good Son, you know, like at the end of the movie, the egg has cracked and he has like lost his innocence. Like
he's smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, he's smoking cigs. He's wearing Ray-Bans. And I think that there's just like a lot of really good bones to this piece of writing and this filmmaking. I mean, the guy who shot this is one of Clint Eastwood's go-to cinematographers throughout the 70s and 80s, Bruce Surtees. It just looks incredible. And then there's like the music that kind of basically locks you into a time and place, which is the Tangerine Dream stuff.
I would say it's one of the best in the moment soundtracks of any movie, because it's got all the, this is peak Tangerine Dream and they were in Thief, that we talked about them in that one, and they're floating around for 5-6 years here. The old time rock and roll Seeger scene in some ways was the best and worst thing that ever happened to Seeger, because Seeger was kind of like the working man's less famous Bruce Springsteen and a Detroit guy, and then this and then Like a Rock were the two things that commercialized. I'm a Seeger guy.
Sure.
This commercialized Seeger. This scene, him dancing around, became so famous, and it was ripped off, I would say, for years and years in different ways and in commercials. So you have that song, In the Air Tonight. I think that's by Phil Collins, the first time this was used in a movie.
Yeah, because Miami Vice is the next year.
Next year. That's the Caroline. Was it real? Hungry Heart by Springsteen. Springsteen was not in movies. I don't know why he greenlit being in this one, but he's in there. DMSR by Prince, which was always like one of the best like early 80s Prince songs. And then Swamp by Talking Heads.
Yeah.
But it's all like the best versions of those songs. And then there's other stuff in there too. But it just feels very, very 1983 to me. The movies that came out in 83 that were pop culture-y. Flashdance, Trading Places, we did that one. War Games, we're going to do that at some point. Vacation, we've done it. Terms of Endearment, which was a phenomenon. Big Show, we've done it. Scarface will eventually do it. But it feels MTV is happening at the same time. Letterman's happening. Eddie Murphy's cresting on SNL. And it just feels like pop culture is shaping in all these different ways, right?
But, you know, there's also like that element of like, think about those movies that you just list off. Flashdance. Do it again. Flashdance, like...
Flashdance, Trading Places, War Games, Vacation, Terms of Endearment, Big Show, and Scarface.
How many of those movies are kind of about, you know, a bunch of people or a character or two thinking, you know what? I don't really feel like life is fair in this country. You know? It's too fucking hard to make a living. I see people, they're flashing their wealth in these more and more exorbitant ways, where the 80s are fully underway at this point. And you got Trading Places with these guys doing this swap. Flashdance is about a woman trying to get out from under this steel town. National Lampoon is about how hard it is to take your kids on vacation. And then you've got Risky Business, where this kid is basically like applying the theories of being a future enterpriser to being a pimp.
Right. Well, and there's other ones too, like he does All the Right Moves later in the year. similar theme, right? This kid's in Pennsylvania. He's just trying to get to college. I'm looking through Box Office Mojo, making sure I didn't miss anything. Porky's 2 the next day. I guess that doesn't qualify.
That's also about how hard it is to be an American, you know?
Easy Money. Oh, Class came out this year.
Yeah.
There's 3 Stephen King movies. Cujo, Christine, and The Dead Zone all came out. Valley Girl. One of the things I think with the movies back then, and I don't know if they're the same anymore, and I don't know what era is better than the other, but these movies really captured a slice of life in these different parts of the country in these really, really deep, cool ways.
Yeah.
And I don't know, maybe TV has taken that over, or maybe we just feel like with the internet, we kind of have a feel for all this stuff. But like, I didn't know anything about Chicago at all, except for what I saw in a movie.
So much of my life, Chicago has been a setting for film or for films. You know what I mean? Like my whole idea of Chicago for most of my childhood was like suburban Chicago. It was grown up. It was John Hughes movies. It was Risky Business and stuff like that. So you're right. I think a lot of stuff gets shot in one of 4 places because the tax breaks are good. And we just don't really have a lot of like feeling like so much stuff looks like Vancouver and Atlanta because that's where they shoot it.
Right. Yeah, like all the right moves. I didn't know anything about Pennsylvania. It's like, coal mining town. Okay, what's this like? Flashdance, a little bit similar, but you would go into these areas and you'd really dive into them. We talked about this when we did the Officer and a Gentleman podcast. Same thing. It's like, oh, what's going on here? Oh, we're in like East Bumfuck, Washington, and every 13 weeks there's a new crew, and every 13 weeks these 2 women have a chance to maybe marry one of the guys, and if they don't, on to the next crew. And it's like, this is amazing. What's going on here? Cruise. I think this rarely happens where you just kind of know somebody's going to become a star. I will say the one thing I didn't really fully understand watching this, because he was a little dorky and stripped down, I didn't see the sex symbol side of it with him. You know, I wasn't looking for it either. But what was one of the things that was surprising to me was watching him become like a favorite target of the ladies. And it was like, oh, that's happening from this movie? Because to me, it was like he was so good at being like this nerd who could kind of see the chessboard, but couldn't see the chessboard at the same time. And he was calling people Buster. Hey, Buster, F you, and doing that stuff. I did not see Top Gun coming. I got to be honest.
We have, over the course of 14 Rewatchables pods on Tom Cruise, probably dissected his on-screen sexual chemistry quite a bit. His kissing style, his everything. It's kind of weird to see, like, this is like the Tom Brady combine photo version of him where you're like, huh, all right, I can kind of see it. It's got like,
he ran a 4.8.
Yeah, he has the frame, right? You know, like, but it is kind of interesting to think about, like, there's pictures of him from the time, like paparazzi pictures. There's this incredible black and white picture of him and Rebecca De Mornay, like at a party.
In the Hollywood Reporter,
And he looks like James Dean.
Yeah.
It's like he was really like, he was a little bit of a bad boy at that time, or it was kind of coded as like, he may look like a clean cut guy, but he's also like, well, fuck the babysitter. And that changed obviously over the course of really more like once he gets to the Mission Impossible movies and he's just like kind of a robot. But like, you know, back in the day, it was like him and Sean Penn were not dissimilar in terms of their like on-screen personas, at least for a brief moment in time.
Yeah, you read all this stuff from that era, and so many of those actors are all coming up at the same time, and a lot of them knew each other. But Timothy Hutton, when we did Ordinary People, Timothy Hutton won the Oscar for that and was maybe 2 years older than 2 to 3 years older than almost all of them.
He got the Mark Sanchez, the car keys. They threw Timothy Hutton the car keys.
So then they're on Taps, and Sean Penn and Cruise are like Timothy Hutton. Someday I want to be like that guy. So he was kind of the older brother for it. But then Sean Penn and Cruise became friends on that set. And Sean Penn is filming Bad Boys, a movie that we've done the Rewatchables in Chicago, as Cruise is filming this. So they're hanging out. Curtis Armstrong wrote a book about all this stuff and was talking about how Sean Penn and Cruise are hanging out and going out all the time. And then you got Rob Lowe, and you got Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez, and Swayze's a little bit older, I think, but he's coming up too. C. Thomas Howell. it's just a slew of them, and they're all these white guys competing for the same roles, basically around the same age.
Yeah, and then honestly, from the Curtis Armstrong stuff, and even from Bronson Pinchot's stuff, like it doesn't sound like Tom Cruise sounded like a little bit of a dickhead back then. Like he wasn't it wasn't the buttoned up like everything is like run through a machine in my public persona yet.
Right. He was more like, hey, I thought Tom was showing up. Yeah, I don't know where he is. It's like a lot of those. And then Curtis Armstrong was saying how the movie ended and he like basically never talked to him again, even though they hung out all the time. The other thing, I'll step on half-assed internet research now. So Rebecca De Mornay shows up and has never been in a movie, but she's Harry Dean Stanton's girlfriend.
This is the only piece of half-assed internet research that you ever need to know for the rest of the run of this podcast.
Listen, rarely do we pull something out of Casting What Ifs and half-assed internet research and move it to the lead segment. This has happened 3 times maybe in the history of the pod. She's dating
Joe Biden should have led with this at the State of the Union. He should have been like, my fellow Americans. Harry Dean Stanton used to date Rebecca De Mornay.
Harry Dean Stanton, who's 25 years older than her at that point? 20?
Yeah.
He had just played Brain in Escape from New York. And he gets the script because they're trying to get him to be Guido the Killer Pimp.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, oh, man. He's like, you should read for this. And she wants to break in. So needless to say, she crushes the audition. Does, by all accounts, like not awesome with Cruise, but they were like, fuck it, let's roll the dice. So she gets it. And now Harry Dean Stanton is coming to the set every day. And this is all recounted in Curtis Armstrong's book. But Cruise and De Mornay are starting to, there's a fire being lit.
Yeah.
And basically the movie's getting filmed and it's a love triangle with Harry Dean Stanton, Rebecca De Mornay, and Tom Cruise. This is an actual thing that happened.
Yeah. And I think it's in Curtis Armstrong's thing where Harry Dean was like offset, but like staying in Chicago while they were shooting it. And would spend all day swimming laps in the pool for hours.
Yeah.
Like, I love this detail. Of this
like
guy
Rowdy Gaines.
like just fucking swimming like naiad to nowhere because his girlfriend is hanging out.
As his girlfriend's riding Cruise in the living room for 2 straight days filming a sex
into the
scene.
American flag,
Yeah. Well, I mean, you would have bought Cruise stock after this movie, and I did. I also bought a ton of Rebecca De Mornay stock. And I think afterwards it was like the slugger's wife and it just never really happened for her. And I don't know, bad choices, whatever it was. But when she kind of circles back, 9 years later with Hand That Rocks the Cradle, and she's amazing in that. And it's like, why didn't we do better here? What happened? Every guy I know is in love with her. And she was a good actress, or a pretty good actress. I never got it.
I mean, I think in the same way that you're talking about Tom Cruise and the generation that he came up with, for me, De Mornay is probably, I don't know, maybe a hair younger. I'm not exactly sure, but like, you have to imagine she's doing stuff, Deborah Winger, Sissy Spacek, Meryl Streep, like there's...
How about Roadhouse? She couldn't have been in that. Like, there's like 7. Her and Sharon Stone.
With all due respect, I think Rebecca De Mornay was probably dreaming bigger than Roadhouse.
Her and Sharon Stone and Kelly Preston. I just don't understand why they weren't in more stuff.
Yeah, but I think what you're saying is that you thought De Mornay was probably in that Winger Spacek Streep group of. Like,
I don't know. No, I don't know. I wouldn't say that as much as
Jessica Lange. You know,
I didn't see 7 Oscars in her future.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought she was going to be an A-list star.
I mean,
I didn't know what was next, but I felt like more big movies were next. And maybe it was some of the choices, people she dated, I don't know. But she's one of in this movie especially, she's riveting in every scene. I feel like nobody is blowing her off the screen in any moment. And every time she is in anything, you're noticing her and you're watching her.
Well, she's perfect because she is the flame and you are the moth. Like,
right.
you know that you're in trouble. You know this isn't going to end well. You know that this can't possibly be happening. And but she's not like a femme fatale. Like, she's not evil. She's got the same values as Joel. Like, they just want to make money. They're just doing it in different ways or the same way.
So for the people, I'm told that sometimes people listen to this podcast without ever having seen the movie. The premise of this movie is Joel's parents go away, which was the premise of, I would say, 50% of the 80s movies that involved high school kids. And his friend Miles is like, oh, I'm going to call this girl. And he calls one of those ads in the back
Jackie.
of the thing.
Yeah.
Jackie comes in. Let's just say not exactly what Joel was looking for, but she gives Joel a number for Lana, Rebecca De Mornay.
Because it's what all white boys off the lake want. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Comes in, rocks his world. He goes to get money to pay her. Comes back. His mom's prized egg is gone. And now this movie becomes a chase of finding out where Lana is. How can he get the egg back? But the big question in this movie, is she conning him from the get-go? Is she conning him as we get into the movie? Was she never conning him? And this has become one of those, I've had real arguments about this where people are like, oh no, she knew from the get-go. Jackie was in on it. They were like, oh, I found this guy off the lake. I bet you can run a game on him. There's a flip side where she doesn't know any of this. And just at the end, what happens when Guido gets his stuff back and she wasn't involved at all. Where do you stand, Chris Ryan? It kind of depends on how cynical of a person you are.
I think when I was a kid and I watched this, it never occurred to me.
Right.
When I'm an older person now, I watch it and I see a lot of ambiguity to her behavior, but I don't see it necessarily being like this master plan. Because if it's a master plan, did it really culminate with having a reverse yard sale? Like, is that
right.
That was like, I mean, what if they could they have gotten the deed to the house? Could they have like, why destroy the Porsche? Why not steal it? Like, there's tons of things that could have been a little bit more lucrative than just winning back the money that Joel
and
made.
also he destroys the Porsche.
Yeah, but this is the perfect example. They have a very purposeful shot of Lana going into the car to get her purse and taking the parking brake off. It's an accident, but it also seems like she did it a little bit on purpose.
Right.
And the entire movie is her creating a dependency for Joel on her. Like, you need me to come back to get the money so that you can pay off the car. I have the egg, I will bring it to you, but first you have to do this. It's always like this transactional thing. I just don't think that it was all part of like a master plan that goes back to Jackie.
Is there any part of you that thinks there was no master plan at all?
Yeah, I mean, the part of me that's still like a teenager who's just like, what if there is a hooker with a heart of gold?
Yeah, maybe she loves him.
Yeah.
This is a famous rags to riches movie where it starts at Warner Brothers. Brickman has a deal to write and direct. Warner's puts it in turnaround. Now it happens. Abnett and Tish decide, oh, we really like this. They take meetings everywhere. And at that point, the prostitute thing becomes an issue because Night Shift has just come out. I don't think people realize how beloved Night Shift was going to be. I can't believe we haven't done that in the Rewatchables yet, but it didn't do well in the theater.
We're not doing Sex Work Month on the Rewatch.
Is it too late? Wait, what day is it?
It's March.
What'd we do? Can we squeeze Roadhouse in? Sex Work Month.
Yeah.
We'll just started a week late. I'm not against it. Best little whorehouse in Texas.
It's only because of Leap Day. That's why we got screwed up.
Leap Day. Fuck that. But they were worried about the prostitute thing, so they couldn't sell it. And then they showed it to Geffen, who's launching Geffen Films. And he says, I love it. What if we raise the age of Lana so she's 21? And they're like, okay. And now Geffen makes it and we're off. And that's one piece of the romantic story of this movie, how hard it was to make. The other was the director, Paul Brickman, who was so upset that they changed his ending that it really seems like it transformed his desire to ever direct movies. And he only makes a couple more. And this guy might have been Alexander Payne.
I completely agree with you. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's like if Alexander Payne made Election and was just like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not going to make any more movies.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that this dude is just like working with like Michael Mann and Ethan and Joel Coen chops and also applying it to like these pretty interesting ideas about like money and sex and the union of the two, and then he just
had a sense of humor.
and has a sense of humor and has an eye for casting and has a sensibility for music and style and everything. And he doesn't make another movie. I mean, did he make Men Don't Leave, right?
Yeah, like 7-8 years later.
And then
this is like a tragedy along the lines of like what would have happened if Len Bias hadn't died and had played for the Celtics and shit like that. I'm like, what would have happened if they had just given Paul Brickman his ending? Would he have made 20 movies?
I don't know, man. I mean, this is like, it's a pretty common Hollywood occurrence for people, the executives to come in and mess with the ending and make it a little softer. We've done this 100 times. I mean, maybe Paul needed a little bit more of a bulletproof sensibility when he's like, all right, well.
Yeah, maybe he wasn't, then his skin wasn't thick enough to handle Hollywood.
To your point, I think the reason why there's such a debate about Lana's behavior is the end of the movie that he shot, and we'll get into this, his original ending. You're like, yeah, like she's essentially tacitly admitting that this was at least partly a game for her or a con, right?
It's way darker. On the other hand,
yeah.
We had always heard about the alternate ending, and it had always been discussed. And anybody who ever, once Wikipedia and all these places were in motion and the oral histories and anniversaries started getting, like, we'd always heard, oh, there's this other ending. I always expected it to be drastically different than the ending of the movie, and it's really not.
No, it's just in the restaurant.
It's shaded a different way, and it looks cool because
oh my God, it looks
she
awesome.
Goes,
the lake in the background.
Yeah, he's like, are you all right? And she's like, it feels like she wants to tell him more. And he's like, come here. And she sits next to him and he's like, no, come here. And she sits on his lap and they wide shot it. And it's a fucking great shot, Gordo. Because they're on like the 95th floor of that John Hancock Tower. You see the lake behind them. And it's just a great shot. And for some reason, it broke Brickman's heart that he had to get rid of it.
I mean, they're basically two orphans. Like Joel's parents are like way more concerned with their goods and their stuff than they are with him. And they only want him to get into Princeton. And then she is like basically out on her own and they find each other, but they can't hang on to each other. It's really sad.
I think it's devastating as a movie fan that this guy didn't make more movies. He had all the goods, man. He could have been he was one of the most talented people of that decade who was making pop culture movies, you know? And
yeah, it's weird. I mean, like the idea that he is making this and it's right around when Cameron Crowe writes Fast Times and then a couple years later is doing Say Anything and stuff.
Right. Imagine Cameron Crowe just stops after Fast Times.
Right.
It's like,
it's not enough to like my novel. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. I'm out. I'm never writing another movie. It's fucking crazy. The script change, Geffen pushed for a happier one and they went back and forth and they decided to test both endings and the happy ending tested better. And Brickman said, I felt the whole film was compromised by this cheesy happy ending. I came very close to walking off the film. And then Abnett said it was extremely painful. No possible way to see eye to eye. I was in the middle of it. I disagree with David about it to this day. Geffen recalls it was wildly higher, the testing for my ending of the movie.
David Geffen's like, I do not give a shit.
Geffen's like, I win. Higher score. And the bad blood was so bad that there was no premiere for the movie. Not even for like the cast.
Wow.
The movie just came out. Because Brickman was so mad, and that was it.
It came out and it made $60 million because Bill Simmons went and saw it like 15 times, right?
Oh my God. Every single person, and I was in 8th or 9th grade, I think we all saw it. And if we didn't see it, we saw it when it was available to rent or it was on cable. One thing with Brickman, so he wrote a bunch of stuff before. This is the first one he directed. One of the movies he wrote really early was Bad News Bears and Breaking Training, which is one of the great sports movies. I fucking love that movie. That's another one we're going to do at some point. But it's a really like clever, funny movie. And I don't know. There's the sliding doors with that dude where I really feel like he could have been one of the guys from that decade. 80s, early 90s.
It's a shame because you hear about this happen sometimes with people who the changes that are made to their work, they're basically like unable to ever get over it. But like the thing is that we have this like auteur romanticism about Hollywood that they're going to let everybody make their final cut movie. And like, it's just like, there's just not that many people who have that kind of control over their work. So it's a shame that he wasn't like, well, I'll get him on the next one. Or maybe the next one I'll write into a place where I don't have to worry about the ending because it has a feel good ending or something like that. It's like he doesn't like go on. If you listen if you watch the on YouTube, they have the director's commentary over the final original ending, and you can still hear it in his voice. He's just like, oh, this is the vision that I had that you're about to see. You're about to see my ending to the film. And you're like, fuck, this guy still feels it, man.
I don't know if this is true, but there was some stuff that he hadn't seen the movie in like 20 years or 25. Like he couldn't watch it. It was too painful for him. $6.2 million budget, made $63.5 million. Our guy, Roger Ebert.
Oh my God.
4 stars. He said, one of the smartest, funniest, most perceptive satires in a long time. It not only invites comparison with The Graduate, it earns it. Here's a great comedy about teenage sex, a movie of new faces and inspired insights and genuine laughs. It's hard to make a good movie and harder to make a good comedy, and almost impossible to make a satire of such popular but mysterious obsessions as guilt, greed, lust, and secrecy. This movie knows what goes on behind the closed bathroom doors of the American dream. Raj, slinging it. Great stuff. But I mean, like Brickman not working again is like that story Larry David told on my podcast about when they asked him to make all these changes to the Seinfeld pod. And he's like, no, I'm not going to do that.
I quit. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, no, come back. Like, what if they say, all right, fuck you. We'll do it with somebody else. Then do we get Seinfeld?
I don't know. I mean,
how many times has this happened in TV and movies over the last 50 years where there's the sliding door? Seems like what happened with Brickman.
Yeah. I would really love to have seen like 5 more movies from this guy.
Yeah. Most rewatchable scene. Would you do The Dream Is Always the Same?
I would do the first 10 minutes as like the dream and the reality. Like that, the dream, the story. Well, first of all, the credit sequence. Awesome.
Great
awesome
stuff.
Credits with like the slow motion of the trains going by. And the dream / these dipshits playing poker.
So I have the poker game, and if we want to just make first 10 minutes that great. Miles, did you have your bike there?
So you rode home and whacked off.
So you rode home. I bet you pedaled home. Then you whacked off. And just the interaction of those 5 guys. And apparently they filmed a lot of improv. And it feels very early Apatow-ish. It's one of those, like, get the cameras going, just make fun of each other, make some jokes and do that. And then Miles and Joel outside. Sometimes you got to say, what the fuck? Make your move. I remember giving you this speech when we were at Grantland. CR. What the fuck brings freedom? Freedom brings opportunity. Opportunity makes your future. So your parents are going out of town. How many movies from 1977 to 1985 involve somebody's parents going out of town? Would you say like 22%?
Is it almost impossible to explain to anybody born after a certain era, like what kind of absentee parents we grew up with?
Well, and also like it's not like they had Simply Safe security cameras, showing who was coming in the front door.
No mobile phones, no ring cameras, nothing. Yeah. They don't have air tags on their Stuber eggs.
Anytime my wife and I are going out, my son's like, so when are you guys going to be back? I'm like, why are you asking?
But don't you kind of, what do you think what kind of experiment would it be if you were just like, leave Ben on his own for 2 weeks?
It would be an absolute catastrophe. There's no way I would do it. There's just no way. It would be risky business, the 2024 edition.
Ben would have like a TikTok house going and also be
Dad,
like
I'm dating a call girl.
I'm also fighting Jake Paul on Netflix.
Dad, I made $28,000 doing running a prostitution ring, and I'm fighting Jake Paul.
I lost it all on Bitcoin. Did Ben watch this with you?
No, I wish he had. I actually think he would have paid attention for this one.
You think?
I mean, it was one of those when we told Craig we were doing it and he said we hadn't seen it. Rarely does this happen. We're like, oh man,
shit.
This is I almost wish I could enter your body for 2 hours. Next rewatchable scene. Oh wait, before on the what the fuck scene. Do you believe in the what the fuck as a life kind of guiding force?
I think sometimes you have to say what the fuck. I think the thing that's so interesting about Miles's speech there isn't so much what the fuck as much as he ties it to like business ideas and the ideas of like
Right.
opportunity and like success and what the fuck should be like throwing caution to the wind and like letting your hair down. But he's almost like using the language of like punk rock or hippiedom and these countercultural ideas to like be like, but we can use this to like get well, to make money.
Right.
Yeah.
Rewatchable scene. The frozen dinner right into the Seeger dance scene. It was so good to see frozen dinners again. I know they kind of still exist, but you don't.
They're
were
too
such
good now. You guys don't understand.
Yeah, you guys don't understand how important chunky soup and frozen dinners and Stouffer's mac and cheese and those French bread pizzas. We only had like 9 of those things.
Yeah, and we also had microwaves that might have been nuclear. Like, I'm not entirely sure. Like, you would turn a dial and they would be like, don't get near this at all.
Right. You didn't have Postmates or any of that stuff, obviously, back then. There was some delivery, but there were nights where you're just like, I'm hungry. What's in the freezer? It's this Stouffer's French bread pizza that's it's covered in an icicle. I have to thaw the icicle off, or the Hungry Man. The Seeger dance scene, completely improvised. Cruz was just instructed to dance to rock music. I'm not sure they knew what song was even going in there yet.
I'll quote Craig one more time just to say he was like, this movie is so much more than that dance scene. And I do think that the dance scene has become like bigger than the movie. Or
no
was.
Question. That's how my kids knew it. My son, when he was like 5 or 6, my daughter was filming videos of him doing the wearing a pink shirt and just dancing around our thing and imitating this because somehow they knew about it. I don't even know how. It's not like we let them watch the movie. I also think this Seeger scene is funny because it's a window to where we're going with Cruz.
The try hard stuff. Yeah.
It's like, just file this one away. We're going to be going on a ride with this guy. When he goes for it, he's going to be really going for it. So 5 years later, when
did he go to Brickman and say like, what we need here is this guy having like the night of his life? Because like any other teenager would have like watched wrestling, eaten chocolate, gotten drunk, jerked off, and gone to bed. And this guy does,
gone under dad's bed to see if there are any porn mags.
And this guy does like a full Broadway musical scene.
Yeah. I think it was in the script, and then I think Cruz is like, what if we did this, and just tilted a little bit. But yeah, within 5 years he's, juggling vodka bottles where was he, in the Bahamas or where'd they go?
Is it Jamaica or the Bahamas?
Jamaica. He's juggling vodka bottles in Jamaica, and he's doing the Werewolves of London scene and the pool movie, all that stuff. Color Money. I'm just putting Get Off the Babysitter as a quickie rewatchable because that scene is so fucking funny. Joel, get off the babysitter. It's just so good. It's not long, but it's. And also, we get our guy Ron Dean, who was in The Fugitive. We talked about him when we were in Chicago.
Every Chicago movie needs Ron Dean.
Yeah. And guess what? He's playing a police sergeant. All right. The car chase. So we end up at the Drake Hotel. They're trying to find out what's going on with Lana. And all of a sudden, they got dad's car, the Porsche. I got a lot of thoughts about that whenever you want it. And all of a sudden, she's like, hey, can you give me a ride? And now they're in a car chase with Joey Pants.
Guido. Yeah.
A.K.A. Guido, leading to Miles ripping off like 5 classic lines, including, I don't believe this. I've got a trig midterm tomorrow and I'm being chased by Guido, the killer pimp. All I can tell you is I remember in the theater when he said that. And if you watch after, like it's just a wide shot of the car for a little bit. People laughed and applauded at that line in the theater.
Really?
Like it fucking brought the house down. It's such a good line. It's delivered so perfectly. Everything Miles does in the car is, I think I'm going to throw up. I think I'm going to throw up on you, Joel. He's just crushing it. The car chase is really fun.
I think people, in my mind, when I think back of 80s comedies, I think of like it being bigger and broader and maybe more like John Candy and stuff like that. But these are my favorites where it's just like these like one-liners that are like kind of like Fletch and kind of like, and this and to some extent like even Stripes and stuff like that, where it's just like these little like asides that are just crack you the fuck up the more you watch them.
I don't know what's really happened to that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, like for a while there, so much comedy stuff was like basically like being improv. So I don't know if it was, it's like those. I'm pretty sure that was like a lot of it was as written. I would guess.
Culminating in Portia, there is no substitute.
Is
and
no
Miles
substitute.
goes, "Fuck you." Really important Portia moment, though. We also had one a little bit later when the Portia goes in the lake. So this movie has a couple wow moments, right? It's got I should say wow moments, just like memorable. Like the dancing, the him having sex with childhood photos. We're like, whoa, all right, we're doing this. Him ordering Jackie, not realizing who Jackie was, but then it goes to another level with the Porsche, and then later when his stuff gets stolen. This movie does a good job of, oh, Jesus, I didn't realize that was going to happen.
Yeah.
The shock value is good.
You don't really know where the movie's going. It could be like, it could just be like, oh, Joel wants to lose his cherry to Lana, but like it goes in all these different weird directions of like being a caper to being like a con man movie to being like a kind of sexual thriller. It's really kind of awesome in that way.
Yeah, when Guido, in the car chase scene, when he's knocking on the window, open the door, and then he brings out the car.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, brings out the gun. He taps on the window. He's like, open the door. And Miles like, start the car, Joel. Start the car. And all of a sudden, now we're in like this Michael Mann movie.
Yeah.
The Porsche going in the lake. We get stoned Tom Cruise, who, if he wasn't stoned, did a phenomenal job of making me think he might have been stoned. Very good stoned Tom Cruise. I would not have expected that. And then the car rolling down the hill, it's just an unbelievable 40 seconds. And then it stops and it's just dead quiet on the bridge. Ah, thank you. And then boom.
Yes.
What
is it? I really don't want to step on this too much because I want to talk about this more when it comes to double feature, but I have to bring up the similarities between Risky Business and Ferris Bueller. So there's a lot. There are a lot of things in it.
Including that the houses were right next to each other.
Yeah, and it's suburban Chicago, and it's like this kid who's trying to like decide what to do with his future and figuring out like how he feels about women and stuff like that. But what the fuck was up with these dads with these cars that couldn't even be looked at?
Right.
And the dad's got something like on a tarp, under a tarp, and it's like, no, you could drive the station wagon. And it's like Cameron and Joel both have these absolute monsters sitting in the garage.
Yeah.
I was like, what a moment.
He says it in the airport. He's like, should I start the Porsche to make sure the battery's still running? No, you are not to touch the car, Joel. Leave it in there. Don't go near it. The Porsche going in the lake is just a wow moment and leads to, I think, another really well-crafted scene when he finds out he gets mad at the nurse. He gets suspended.
He's losing it.
He's really unraveling. Glenn gives him his bike and Cruz does he goes to find Lana and goes up the stairs. And the way it's shot, it just feels like he's losing his mind and they're shooting and he's running up the stairs. He's running and it's like frantic. And then he sees her. And they do this a couple times in this movie because they do it when they drop the parents off too at the airport. The camera from his perspective,
it's
going
awesome,
toward the characters. It's really cool. It's like a little Jonathan Demme-ish, but reverse.
Yeah, and if your team, this is all a con, this is good evidence for it because you would say she pushed the car into the lake. She asks him if they can do the brothel, and he says no. Then she pushes the car into the lake, and he's in dire straits financially, and he's got to get this car fixed. I love when the mechanic is like, "Who's the U-boat commander?"
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And she pushes the car into the lake, let's just say.
Yeah.
And then he comes running back to her because he needs her again. So you create this like, I mean, it does in that moment feel like it's a con.
I'll do a picking it now. I'm not positive the Porsche could get knocked out like that and just start rolling down the hill because she pushed something.
She gives it a little nudge.
I think when that car's shut, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but those cars are pretty carefully constructed.
So you think if it's in park, did she take the parking brake off, or did she put it in forward and drive?
It seemed like she hit the parking brake, or she knocked it into neutral. But even if she knocked it into neutral, so unless he forgot to do the parking brake, I don't know. She introduced me to her friends. I introduced her to my friends. This whole scene.
This is my rewatchable.
It's Breaking Bad. All of a sudden, he's got the Ray-Bans. He's got cigarettes, although we never really see Tom Cruise smoking. He always has the cigarette, but we never see
Stan in the burger joint, and they're going through the what does it cost to go on 3 dates?
Do it. Go through it. What does he say?
Hold on.
He says, all right, so it's like, what, $30 for movie and dinner? You leaving a tip?
Hold on, pull it up.
There's gas, that's $6. He's just laying out. It's $36.
Oh my God. Yeah, it basically winds up being $60, and he's like, you can just be with, I can get you laid for less than that. Yeah.
Right. I love all of this. And what was great in the 80s watching it, heading toward high school, is it felt realistic. Like this could actually happen in my town. There could be some sort of brothel situation. And by the way, I'm bringing $50. I'm in. What time? 8 o'clock. I'll get to have sex with somebody. This sounds great. Then we get the party, which is also awesome. And a really, really well shot where you always know where you are in the party and there's a lot of stuff moving around. But
it's cool too because you spent so much time in that house that you kind of know the layout of it at a certain point. Yeah.
And it's like, oh, they're actually really having a party with prostitutes and horny teenage boys, and they're going for this. And then Talking Head Swamp's playing, but then all of a sudden Rutherford shows up. And that's another one of those moments in this movie. You're like, oh my God, they're doing this?
Also, like, who does college admission interviews at like 9 p.m.?
Right, 9 p.m. on a Friday? Kind of a weird time.
Like, you're not my parole officer, man. Like, we should schedule this.
Leading to not quite Princeton material, are we? And then Cruz with the sunglasses. Looks like the University of Illinois, which for me and my dad was a running joke during the entire college process. Every time it was like, oh, I got rejected from another one. Looks like the University of Illinois.
Did your dad find that funny?
Probably progressively less funny after a couple of the rejections. But so you're in on the Rutherford 9 p.m. Friday interview?
Oh, no, I have no idea what he's doing there. Like, I feel like there would at least be like a follow-up kind of scheduling, unless he's like, I'm dropping in to get the real you.
Yeah. Well, he stayed after a little while and talked to the girls.
Yeah.
Joel buys his stuff back.
Yep.
I don't know if you can go $40 on the artsy fartsy thing. Was funny. Joey Pants is great in that scene. And then the ending on the 95th floor, John Hancock Tower. And I got to be honest, sorry, Paul Brickman. I kind of like the new ending.
You do?
Well, I like my name is Joel Goodson. I deal in human fulfillment.
Yeah.
I grossed over $8,000 in one night. Time of your life, huh, kid? That's a good ending.
I know.
I also like the other ending with the wide shot in the lake, and you could have given me that one too. But I don't think this is a bad ending, I guess.
Yeah, I just think it's a little bit sweeter. It's like, hey, that happened, but who knows? Maybe down the line, like we'll get together. So it's got like a little bit more hope.
So what do you have for most rewatchable scene?
I definitely have like Joel turning into the pimp and the blues playing while he's walking up and down the street and goes to the gas station, working the guy at the burger joint. Like it's so funny.
I love the car chase. I like Lana in the front passenger seat, some of her reactions where she's just laughing at one point. I like Guido as a fucking maniac. I like the chase where they're just doing a circle for like 2 minutes and then he gains enough steam to veer the other way. I enjoy that. All right, what stage's the best? We talked about this, but my folks are out of town.
Yes.
Just as a premise of a movie,
What's the longest your folks left you alone during high school?
They left for like 9 days in 1986 during the Red Sox Angels ALCS.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. Don't think I didn't have a party either because I absolutely 100% did.
And did you try to clean it up and like pretend like you didn't have a party, or did you say I'm going to have some friends over?
No.
Because one of my favorite tropes of these is the manic dash to clean up after the party. And how everything gets put away.
16-year-olds cleaning. Right. Yeah, and it's terrible. Casting. Somebody named Nancy Copper did the casting for this. She had just done her first movie ever, Eddie and the Cruisers. And she's like, I got this guy, Joey Pants. What about him for Guido? But Nancy, talk about 2 for 2.
Wow. Yeah.
What a great job by her. I don't know what happened the rest of her career, but what a start. We mentioned the Mornay love triangle. So if I ever talk to Ben about just life, I think one of my rules with him is if somebody says to him, what if I said I'd be your girlfriend next couple of days, no charge? You've probably made some bad choices.
Oh my God.
No charge. It's like, maybe go back to the drawing board.
They got incredible apps now, man. You don't have to do that, man.
I have Cruz's different faces.
Yeah.
Really, nobody's unearthed a better Hall of Fame collection of faces than Cruz. Oh my God.
I'm so
hooker,
fucked. Yeah.
The hooker is here and Jackie was not what I was expecting face. I'm about to have an orgasm on a train with Lana the hooker face. My Porsche just went into the lake and I'm completely fucked and I've been suspended for 5 days face. Like he's just ripping them off left and right. It's pretty great.
It's awesome.
What do you have for What's Age the Best?
Couple of things. I got it's the Steuben egg, the crystal egg that the mom has. Everybody's mom had like this thing that was irrationally valuable.
Yeah.
That you didn't understand like why they cared so much about this one thing.
Right.
But that was always the thing that you were most likely to damage.
Right. It almost made you want to damage it, just to damage them.
It was always just like, just so you know, don't ever walk into this room. I was like, I'm only going into that room.
Yeah,
you know,
that
like,
sounds great.
The other thing that was like, my dad was a big audiophile. So the dad being really into his stereo equalizer.
Yeah.
And being like, these are the settings. I remember what they are. Don't fuck with it is really funny. I
bought this from Buck's Stereo Super World. What was Buck's place called? In Boogie Nights?
Oh, yeah,
Bucks.
Right.
And it's more and more bass.
And then the last thing was just like, it's really awesome to watch this movie and watch Lana and Joel like switch in and out of characters over the course of the movie because, you know, his parents are gone. And so they'll have sex the night before. And then the next day they will basically like dress up as mom and dad.
Yeah.
And like,
she's making eggs.
And he's like, you know, mom sends her love and stuff like that. Like he's like acting like his dad or he's acting like he's in this adult relationship. And everybody does that. Like she'll wear a Princeton sweatshirt one day. Yeah. Like, you know, it's kind of this switching that they do is so cool to watch over the course. And it's really Age the Best.
A couple lines that I thought aged really well. I guess I could have just put this in great quotes. It was great the way her mind worked. No guilt, no doubts, no fear, none of my specialties. Just the shameless pursuit of immediate gratification. What a capitalist.
What a capitalist. That's so good.
This is another movie that has good narration. I might have to dump my narration thing. I think I just noticed when we've done too many movies where I'm like, you know what, narration, pretty good at that one.
Yeah, if it's Tom Cruise or Ray Liotta, I think it gets a pass for sure.
My daddy used to spank my bare bottom. Now he's gone. Will you take his place? That was one of the ads Miles wrote. Also, when he comes back and his friend Glenn had sex with one of the prostitutes, and she's like, 50 goes to the house, and he goes, I am not the house. He's just so upset. Please, Joel, do just what they say. Just get out the babysitter. And then I love when he's like, what's going on with us? He asks the questions and he's like, yes, no, maybe. And she does the yes, no,
maybe.
The way she delivers that, she's just awesome in this movie. More What's Age the Best. The sunglasses were the Ray-Ban Wayfarer model. And apparently they weren't selling well. And then they skyrocketed by 2,000%. And the Ray-Bans basically credit this movie and Blues Brothers.
I mean, I was
as
trying
being
to think
the best
about,
marketing of all time for them.
How much value did Tom Cruise create for Ray-Ban in the course of 4 years?
Could he have gotten 5% of the company? And
between this and Top Gun, like the Aviators and the Wayfarers, like that those are basically the two most famous pairs of sunglasses in history.
And he's tied to both of them. It's incredible. And then there's a whole weird thing about when Joel first takes the Porsche for a spin and backs out of the driveway. Sean Penn is driving the Porsche for some reason because they wanted to throw him in the movie. when it's he's backing up and the music stops and goes off, and then because he stalled the car and then he turns it on again. And I don't know why they did it that way, but it was Sean Penn. All right, we'll take one more
I have
break.
one more. Can I
go.
just do one more? What's Age the Best? I literally think you could put this Tangerine Dream score on any movie since this movie has come out, and it would be 5% better. Like you could literally use this score on Oppenheimer, and I would be like, man, Oppenheimer had another gear.
But what's weird is they had this run and it ended. I would have thought they would have been like John Williams, where they're like 92 and still doing Tangerine Dream songs. Pretty great. All right, some quickie categories. The Kid Cudi Pursuit of Happiness Award for Best Needle Drop. You could do Tangerine Dream with Upset Joel racing to find Lana after he finds out he's been suspended, or you just go right to In the Air Tonight.
Yeah, so I think Old Time Rock and Roll, I think, is the best needle drop because it's the one that's the most iconic from this movie.
Oh, I guess that does qualify. You're right.
But for me, Love on a Real Train is like, just absolute jam.
Yeah, I'm with you. The Den of Thieves Benihana Award for Scene Stealing Location. I kind of like being in the Drake, famous Chicago hotel.
Me too, I had that. I had the Drake.
This is a great idea, Joel. Where else can you get a hot chocolate for $4? Miles had like 11 great lines in this movie.
I wasn't sure if Lake Michigan would qualify for Benihana, as it is a body of water. You know, it's like...
Oh, that's a good point.
I love Lake Michigan as the backdrop to stuff.
What do you have for great shot, Gordo? I had the shot all from Joel's perspective when he's about to drop his parents off from the airport, and she's showing him around. He's like, do you hear something wrong here with that's too much bass? And then he drives them and they go, and I just like how they did that. I
have Joel calling Lana for the first time.
I'm putting the catcher mask on?
With the catcher's mask on and checks cashed flashing in the background. And it's like, oh man, this guy fucking cashed a check right here. Yeah.
Could you have done this movie blind?
Like, could I have done it without notes?
Like if I called you 20 minutes ago and said we're doing Risky Business.
I mean, it's like there's too many lines in it that you want to write down, and I think also like watching it this time, I'm like, oh my god, like those little details, like there's little things like did you notice that like basically throughout the movie, Lana's always picking up and looking at Joel's mom's stuff.
Right.
Like I didn't notice that like the first 10 times I saw it. You know, I just
dreaming of a simpler time when maybe she could have been Joel's mom. The Vincent Chase Award. Are we sure this character was actually good at his job? Guido the Killer Pimp. What's going on here exactly?
So is he in it? Is he in this to scam Joel, or is he in this to be a successful pimp? That's the question.
Why does he have such bad control over his girls? Why aren't they that afraid of him?
Honestly,
how do you get them to come back in the end?
As pimps go, he's got a pretty good sense of humor. You know what I mean? Like he has a temper problem, but like, you know, so far it seems like in this movie.
Is he big enough to be a pimp? I don't know. I just left me with a lot of questions.
Some of his like measurables don't quite add up to you.
Yeah, I think he gets murdered about 6 months later.
I had a different Vincent Chase though.
What do you got?
The Princeton admissions guy.
Oh,
well, pretty easily swayed, you know.
Come on.
If I'm Lori Loughlin, I'm looking at him like, what the fuck did I do?
The Butch's Girlfriend Award for Weak Link of the Film.
I didn't have one.
I had one. I think it's too hard to move all the furniture back in the house within like 45 minutes.
Oh, that's a nitpick for sure. Yeah, like there's just no fucking way.
It's an actual weak link. I think they should have built in a little more time where they're moving the stuff back and then the plane lands, or they're bringing a grandfather clock. Like it's just
a piano. I mean, the mom should notice like this is not the way I left things.
Plus, the house doesn't smell of cigarettes, like
or other things.
Yeah, or other things. There's not
like how many orgasms have happened in that house?
My God, there's not some condom stuck against the ceiling.
It probably looks like the bed in Basic Instinct.
Yeah, that you just kind of have to overlook that one. What's age the worst? Going into the airport to drop your parents off.
Yeah.
Actually walking in and seeing them off. Like when was the last time that happened? 2001 spring? The Chivas Regal and Coke with the frozen dinner, which also is the winner of the Big Kahuna Burger Award for best use of food and drink. That's age the worst. That's so disgusting.
It's so funny though, because it's exactly what you do the first night the parents are gone is you just pick the thing that you think is like the most elegant liquor, and you're like,
you pour it wrong.
Yeah, and then you're eating, you basically are drinking like brandy with your dinner.
Yeah. I'm gonna guess there was no liquor left in the house.
Not a drop
by the end of that. What's age the worst? Teenage kids named Joel? Do you think we've had one in the 21st century?
That's a fucking awesome question.
It's like my son's like, hey, Joel's coming over today. I'm like, you have a friend named Joel? That name died 30 years ago.
Is his dad Paul Brickman?
Well, I have a couple, but what do you have for what's age the worst?
Just a bunch of teenagers who have savings bonds.
Yeah, when's the last savings bond?
Like, I guess that I think I remember like getting a bank book when I was a kid, and I think my grandfather bought me a savings bond. But the idea that I could get into my safe deposit box to access this and then use it on prostitution is pretty far flung.
I think in the last 15 years, it's Amazon gift cards, Apple gift cards, like whatever. Like that's what you're not getting a savings bond from your 78-year-old aunt anymore. You're just getting like an Amazon gift card.
And then I don't really know how to play cards, but I don't think the guys in this movie do either.
It's rough. I almost decided to do like a 10-minute breakdown of that poker scene because it's brutal. It would almost freeze frame it, but it's not even worth it.
Yeah. The only other thing I had was like, I don't know if you read the Bronson Pinchot stuff about working with Cruise, but it does not sound like it was pleasant.
No, it didn't sound like they liked him that much. And in his defense, he was in a love triangle with Harry Dean Stanton. And he didn't have a lot of focus.
He was stressed out.
I thought Future Enterprisers has aged the worst from the standpoint of what our society values 40 years later. Would they even have a Future Enterprisers now? It's like, your goal is to get rich.
I think isn't that basically what Instagram is?
Yeah, true. Yeah, now it's just social media. The Paul Brickman stuff, not to dive into it again, but so the movie he made in 1990 was called Men Don't Leave. It had Jessica Lange and Chris O'Donnell.
It's pretty good.
He explains it all these years later, saying the success of Risky Business was strange because I had Hollywood coming at me full throttle. I found it very uncomfortable. I moved out of LA immediately. People threw material at me left and right. Some people like the visibility. I don't. I'm more from the J.D. Salinger school. He was offered Rain Man. He was offered Forrest Gump. And even now, he's like, he admits he squandered a really good career, quote. And he said maybe he didn't take advantage of Risky success the way he should have.
Yeah, with all due respect to Risky Business, it's not Catcher in the Rye. So I think that maybe the J.D. Salinger track was the wrong one to choose.
Yeah, we compared it to Alexander Payne earlier. We're not ready to go J.D. Salinger.
You also compared him not making a movie to Len Bias.
Well, I was talking about like a tragedy.
Yes.
I still have Len Bias higher. Was there a better title for this movie?
The original one. It's pretty good. I mean, I think Risky Business is you can't top that, but White Boys Off the Lake is the original script title.
I don't think it would have done it as well, but 40 years later, it's a better title. It's like, oh my God, how many times have you seen White Boys Off the Lake?
I hope someone in music history has named an album that, because that's a great album title.
How many black people are in this movie? That was another thing that jumped out to me. And I didn't want to say it's a what's age the worst because of where they were in Chicago.
Sure.
Breakfast Club is the same way. Well,
Bruce A. Young, who this is one of my that guys, but Bruce Young, who plays Jackie, is also Moselle in Color of Money.
Right.
Which is
we talked about that when we did Color of Money.
Tom Cruise is like, we got to cast Moselle. Can I make a suggestion?
Right. Nuts. Best quote, got to be what the fuck. If you can't say it, you can't do it. What do you have for the Stephen A. Smith Hottest Take a Word?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Risky Business is the prequel to Eyes Wide Shut.
Oh.
So it's basically lines up right if this character had gone to college and then med school.
Right.
And then gotten married and then was living in New York in 1999, but still has that little kinkiness to him.
Oh,
still
yeah.
Is curious about the Fidelio out there.
That 2 weeks with Lana, like he's still thinking about it.
And how amazing would it be if like Lana was one of the girls at the party?
She's murdered in the first hour. Oh my God.
Yeah. But like, I basically think like it wouldn't shock me if Stanley Kubrick saw Risky Business and was like, I think Tom Cruise actually can pull this off. And
there's a dark side with him.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's had better chemistry with a female in a movie than he does with Mornay in this.
I don't know. I mean, it would be this Emily Blunt. And I mean, sexual chemistry, probably not. No, it's like Emily Blunt in Edge of Tomorrow, maybe, or something.
The cop in Days of Thunder, who turns out to be a stripper.
That's right.
That was pretty good. My hottest take, I think this is the second best Tom Cruise role ever.
Oh, wait. So when you mean character?
Character / role.
Okay. So
I think Jerry
best?
Maguire is number one. And I think I would put Joel Goodson above any other character or role he's ever played.
So above Pete Mitchell, above Ethan Hunt, above Vince from Color.
Ethan Hunt was a TV character, so that's like, you can't even count that. Top Gun, I like Pete Mitchell, but Pete Mitchell, he plays that same character 7 times in different movies. He only plays Joel Goodson once, never goes near it again. I was thinking Eyes Wide Shut potentially, but once you get into like 2004, he's just playing, Tom Cruise action person over and over again. But
I like it.
I really like the Joel Goodson character. It's cool. It's complex. It's
I think
different.
Ron from Born on the 4th of July. I think Charlie from Rain Man, both interesting.
So I had Charlie 3rd and I had Born on the 4th of July 4th.
Okay.
Yeah. Casting what ifs. Timothy Hutton, first choice for the role of Joel. Turned it down to work on a movie called Daniel with Sidney Lumet. Rob Lowe in his autobiography claimed that he turned Joel down. A positive, I believe it. Sean Penn, Gary Sinise, Kevin Bacon, John Cusack, and Tom Hanks all auditioned for the role of Joel. Tom Hanks was like 28 and had been on Bosom Buddies already. I think this is true. Michelle Pfeiffer was offered the role of Lana and turned it down.
The ones for Lana are Sharon Stone, Kim Basinger, and Brooke Shields. I want to talk about that. But there was one other Joel rumor, which is Michael J. Fox.
Oh, man. That movie it's DOA if that happens.
He basically, like, Alex Keaton is Joel.
Right, but you can't, it's too weird.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to see Rebecca De Mornay riding Michael J. Fox on a recliner. It's just, there's no way. It's not happening. Michelle Pfeiffer, though, it's a different movie. I don't know if she throws herself into the sex scenes the same way. She's not sultry like De Mornay was, but she was also beautiful. I almost think she would have seemed too famous to be Lana the prostitute.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have bought it. Whereas De Mornay is like,
who is this person?
It's just buyable enough, where you're like, I could see this.
Yeah.
So they're one of the things that Kim Basinger turned down the role of Lana because she didn't like the script. I don't know if that's true. We talked about this when we did Creed. Like 20 years from now, it'll be like, 17 people were almost Adonis Creed. And it's like, now we were close to the movie and we know all the people. But I think as the years passed, they just start adding whoever was good looking.
Tom Holland was going to play Ricky in Creed.
Right.
We should start doing that 25 years later. Who says that they were going to be in the movie?
Yeah, fake news, disinformation. Yeah. Sinatra allegedly considered for the role of Guido.
I think that your fucking brain would have fallen out of your head if Frank Sinatra had played Guido in Risky Business.
They thought he was too serious, too old. They worried about some of the athletic stuff.
It would be kind of gross.
I got to say, I don't believe this one. It's on the internet. A lot of this stuff is half-assed internet. I just don't believe it. Like Tom Cruise was going to be with Frank Sinatra in Risky Business. I'm not buying it.
It is funny how like you just will never let go of how cool Frank Sinatra is.
Well, he's the fucking coolest, man. The chairman.
He wouldn't do that. Not my guy.
The chairman wouldn't have done that. There's no way. The Ruffalo Hannah Rubinek Partridge Overacting Award. I'm going to give this. Oh, who do you have?
Well, it's a pretty reserved movie. I mean, like it's pretty.
Oh no, there's a winner.
Is it Pants?
No. His friend Glenn.
Oh yeah.
When he paid the hooker to have sex and they're leaving and he's like, no, I didn't have sex with Lana. Don't ask me about Vicky. And then he does does like this crazy Austin Powers laugh. It's like, what movie are you in? You're a maniac. I didn't think that guy was very good. Well, I mean, this is really special. The Joey Pants Best That Guy Award in a movie that made Joey Pants a that guy. It's hard not to give it to him, but I want to mention Joel's parents. The mom, I still don't know what the mom's name is, but I've seen her in 20 other things, and I'm always like, Joel's mom! And then Joel's dad eventually had a long run on 90210. I think his name's Nicholas Pryor. He's been in a couple of Rewatchables movies, but then eventually became Chancellor Arnold during the college years of 90210. His daughter Claire dated a bunch of the guys, and he kind of just became Chancellor Arnold. It's weird.
Yeah. So I think Janet Carroll plays the mom. And then, like Glenn also, the guy who plays Glenn, Raphael Sparge, has been in a bunch of stuff.
He's been in a bunch of stuff.
I think you got to give it to
our guy, Ron Dean. And then don't forget about Richard Mazer.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Chris Rutherford.
Who I think he's Richard Mazer and not that guy.
I think Bruce Young to me is that guy in this, though.
Richard Mazer was the bad guy in a child pornography TV movie that won an Emmy. That was one of those, like, this is all of your family should watch this tonight. One of those movies.
This very is special. Yeah.
It's the most special TV movie. And he was really good at it. Every time I saw him after that, I thought of him as the pedophile from that thing. But yeah, I mean, this has to go to Joey Pants.
Sure. As does, I think. So is Dion Joey or Curtis Armstrong?
So Miles is eligible, Curtis Armstrong's character. Don't sleep on Nurse Foley, who only has one scene. She's great. Jackie the hooker.
Yeah.
Richard Mazer. And then I think Vicky, who's not in it enough, but Vicky has some fun moments too.
I love Vicky in this. She's great.
Vicky's great.
Is it true Megan Mullally is in this? I didn't see her.
I couldn't find her. Yeah, I couldn't. She's in it, but I couldn't see her. I'm going to say Miles because I don't think he's in it enough. I think he qualifies and he has unbelievable lens. Recasting couch. I didn't think Raphael Sbarge was very good. Who would you cast instead of his horny friend Glenn? Could it be like a Judd Nelson type situation? Would you go Emilio Estevez? C. Thomas Howell? Maybe spend a little more money on C. Tom?
Does Sean Penn, if they can get Sean Penn to do 2 days, do you think he would be a good Glenn? Or do you think it would just be too edgy?
Oh my, it would be amazing.
So Sean Penn is Glenn.
Sean Penn just banging people in Joel's house? Yeah. Would this movie be better with Tony Romo or Chris Collinsworth for the director's commentary?
Oh, Mike, she just wants to make love on a real train. You gotta love it when
she loves trains, Mike.
The girls love to feel the motion of the ocean, Mike.
They're gonna do it on the train, Jim.
Jim, the American flag's blowing in the background, Jim. It's symbolism, Jim.
Jimmy got the homeless guy off the train. They're gonna do it, Jim. It's a big scene right here for Joel.
The egg is his innocence, Jim. It's like Lord of the Flies.
He's got to get his stuff back. Mom's at the airport. He's got 45 minutes. Get that grandfather clock in there, Jim.
Jackie's not what he was expecting, Jim. He's got a hot read.
I don't know how many more episodes we have with Romo or Collinsworth. It might be less than 3, but I enjoy it every time. It's going to get old fast.
Oh, my God.
It's going to get old fast, Jim. Half-Assed Internet Research. Cruz was 20 when they filmed this, and they wanted to make him look a little more teenage. So they did a weird thing of training where he worked out 7 days a week, lost 10 pounds, stopped working out, and then ate fatty foods to make his face a little more fatty.
Yeah.
And that's how
so
he
had like
a
baby
teenager.
fat on it. Yeah.
Joel's house located at 1258 Linden Avenue in Highland Park. Ferris Bueller located 370 Beach Street, Highland Park. And if you Google Earth it, it's very close to each other.
Oh, okay.
So Ferris and Joel were neighbors.
Yes. So Joel would have been a senior when Ferris was kind of like a freshman, basically, right? Because Ferris is a junior in his year. That's very interesting to consider those two roaming in same circles.
Yeah, like Ferris definitely tried to get into the hooker party. But he was too young. They kicked him out. Maybe he was the guy jumping in the window.
Cameron's just home watching Wings games or like watching Blackhawks games.
Yeah. The crystal egg was made by a century-old manufacturer named Steuben Glassworks, a.k.a. Steuben, located in Corning, New York. Curtis Armstrong's book said that Cruz was laying a lot of pipe during the shoot.
Makes it sound like he's doing a lot of scouting in Chicago.
Like quite a swordsman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brickman said,
do you think Cruise was like, I'm making the check payable to Curtis Armstrong?
It's like, Curtis, I heard you're writing a book. What if I told you I could fund that book? Brickman said the marketing campaign for this movie was like they're trying to sell Porky's. They had a cartoon character of Tom winking in bed with girls in bikinis all around him and money raining down. That's the poster they wanted to use. This is my big fight. I just want to say I would buy that poster right now. That's available. Yeah, I'd love to bid on that poster wherever it is. The
actual poster is iconic.
Actual poster is great. I also like the raunchy Porky's version of the poster. Sounds amazing. So 4 1978 Porsche 928 models used in the movie. A collector tried to track all of them down, found only one, which sold for $49,000 in 2012, and then 9 years later, $1.980 million, $2 million for the Porsche. That's a weird one for me because, yeah, cool to have, but in 50 years when nobody knows what risky business was, what are you going to do with this $2 million Porsche? Who's going to be impressed by this? It's like Tom Cruise. People are like, who's Tom Cruise?
And also there's like one living German mechanic who can fix it.
Right. I'm going to say waste of money. Apex Mountain, Cruise, obviously not. Brickman, definitely. High quality 80s teen movies. I'm going to say it's either this or Fast Times in the finals, and I'm going to go with this.
I don't know. I mean, is Say Anything 80s or is that 90s? It's 80s, right?
No, it counts. 89.
I think Say Anything is probably Apex Mountain for me.
Okay. I'm going to go with this. Chicago movies.
How about Chicago suburbs? And I think the Rushmore
Chicago suburb movies
is Home Alone, Ferris, this, and then what would you put forth?
Home Alone, Ferris, this, and Thief.
For the suburbs.
Thief uses the suburbs really
That's
well.
True.
Why not? Porsche. So Porsche was obviously doing really well at this point. I can vouch firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
This movie directly influenced an entire generation of young kids who were like, someday I'm going to make enough money that I can drive a Porsche. I think this was one of the best marketing campaigns of all time.
Did your dad have a car you weren't allowed to touch?
Yeah, he did. My stepdad did, not my dad.
Your stepdad?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what was it?
I'm not going to say.
Okay.
We also had a motorcycle.
Was it a DeLorean? Like, why can't you say?
Apex Mountain for pimps?
I think Dolomite, I think that there's some bigger pimp
Huggy
movies.
Bear on Starsky and Hutch?
Yeah. I think pimping had bigger cultural footprint.
This is tough. In the Air Tonight?
No, it's got to be Miami Vice, right?
It's got to be Miami Vice.
In the Air Tonight isn't the first song I think of when I think of Risky Business. It is the first song I think of when I think of Miami Vice.
Finishing last all the times in the last 12 years when some aging sports producer on a major game decided to use In the Air Tonight and thought he was being cutting edge.
Yeah.
It's like the song is now 41 years old. Settle down, guys. Joey Pants, no. Rebecca De Mornay.
I mean, technically, I guess Rocks the Cradle is a bigger movie. And then she does Backdraft right around there too as well, right?
Yeah.
She's kind of in big blockbusters at that point.
Just feel like her career should have been better. Bronson Pinchot, no. The Drake? Pretty prominently featured.
Is the Drake's not in Fugitive? Yeah, it is pretty prominently featured for sure. I feel like the Drake has like another appearance in something, like somebody's staying at the Drake in some other movie, but I can't think of it. Let me just look really quick.
I'll move categories as you're looking. Racehorse or fantasy team name? Risky Business as a racehorse is just a great name.
Oh, the Drake's My Best Friend's Wedding.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
That's what I was trying to remember.
Risky Business as a racehorse?
I like that.
Guido the Killer Pimp is a racehorse.
What about White Boys Off the Lake as a racehorse?
White Boys Off the Lake or as a fantasy team name? I think those are all good. Okay. Picking nits. I have a bunch. Well, how about this? You go and whatever you say that...
all right, let's just have this conversation. Not to put too fine a point on it, but is Joel a virgin in the beginning of this movie?
Oh, I had that as unanswerable questions. I'm going to say yes.
He's Wemby-esque in his first outing, if he is a virgin.
Yeah, he might have...
No nerves? No kind of awkward, like, like, is this how this works? Like, it's just like, we're just going at it. Like,
he might have rubbed out a stunt load early before she got there for stamina reasons. He might have thrown it in the bullpen.
Holy shit.
He might have done 75 pitches in the bullpen before she came over.
They got Mariano getting left. It
because she says later, she says like, "You always this quick, Joel, or is this something new?" And it feels like some sort of I don't know. I thought it was weird.
The only other thing I would say as a big nitpick is, as somebody who has had a car in the shop for going on 4.5 weeks now because I scratched the door or someone scratched my door.
Yeah.
The idea that a mechanic could get your car out of Lake Michigan, drain it, and replace everything within the time period of your parents being gone is highly unlikely.
In Chicago?
Yeah.
What time of year are we in Chicago, you think?
Spring? College admission interviews?
I was thinking like it's like October.
Well, he's already taken the SATs once or twice, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's got to be like lined up with college stuff, and that's maybe why they've gone on their like little like beach trip, Joel's parents.
I have some good picking nits. First of all, no way Guido the Killer Pimp catches Joel in the car chase.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Not with that portion.
He has to go back in the hotel, get his car. That's taking 4 minutes. Joel's in a Porsche. Joel's gone. I don't know. Even if you watch how they edit it, there's just no fucking way. It's a huge flaw. Miles at the party, he's like, I don't have to pay for it. And Joel's like, okay, man, whatever's good. And he's like, do we understand each other? I still don't understand what happened in that scene. He's saying, I don't have to pay for sex because I get sex anyway.
Yeah, I think he's trying to make Joel feel a little bit bad for everything that's happening, and is sort of judging him like this is beneath me. But I don't know.
I just don't understand that scene at all. Wouldn't the neighbors say something to Joel's parents?
Yes. So,
like a 100% chance or a 100% chance? First of all, massive party with cars everywhere in like the quietest suburb in Highland Park, and then
Talking Heads is thumping.
And then a fucking yard sale of all of his stuff, which is on the front lawn for hours on end. Not one
nobody
neighbor
goes up
is
and says like, "Hey, Peggy, all your shit was on the lawn."
Peggy,
like, that's against
what happened
the
to your
HOA.
grandfather clock? It was next to the piano on your front lawn for 3 hours. I just feel like that's coming back. I mentioned earlier, I don't know how you move your furniture back in the house that fast. All right, here are my two biggies. Joel's trying to get into Princeton. 560 verbal, 530 math, and he's got a GPA of 3.1.
Yeah.
I was going to high school and college around the same time when at least the SATs were around there. Like Princeton, I'm going to say mid 1300s or higher for SATs minimum. So Joel's at 1090. So that's a cross off. Grades 3.9 and up, probably 4.0, and you would have had to probably play sports, do some sort of major thing. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm in Future Enterprisers. Joel had no chance at Princeton. Like, no chance.
Yeah.
No chance.
I mean, I think that's sort of the point, right? Is Rutherford comes and he's just like not a very impressive resume.
But beef the SATs up a little bit. Make it so that
it's like a split decision.
Give him a puncher's chance. Make it like I've got a 3.5 and I got 690 verbal and 590 math. I'm at 1280. So I'm a little short there. I'm a little short with the GPA. I don't really have that extra thing, but it's not like inconceivable that I could go to Princeton.
Not a lot of extracurriculars.
These scores are inconceivable.
Yeah. What is Joel doing though? Like no sports, right? Like it doesn't seem like he's interested in sports at all. He's basically
he's like the studious guy who's got a 3-1.
Yeah. Maybe take a little less time jerking off thinking about babysitters.
To be fair, if Ben said I'm going to end up with a 3-1, I'd be like, that sounds amazing. But Ben's actually doing shit in high school, and he's at a really hard school. Like, Joel's not doing anything? And why didn't he have an SAT tutor to boost the scores up?
It's fucking amazing that you were comparing your son to Joel Goodson in 1983.
Listen, would I take these scores for Ben? You could talk me into it, but Ben's doing 9 things. Joel's like, yeah, I'm in Future Enterprisers.
Yeah, I'm building this box.
This memo machine, trying to sell it. All right, here's the other big one. The math of the party, I wrote everything down. I watched it over and over again. I'm really trying to figure this out. So when his friend Glenn comes over and has sex with Vicky, and she says $50 goes to the house.
Yes.
What does the houses take then? 33%? Are we saying?
No, it's $100 because Lana is like, how does a guy like that have $100? And Joel's like, laughing.
So that $100. So the house
she's
got
like,
50.
it's from savings bonds. All your friends have savings bonds.
All right. So then when we get to the party, is it 50-50, the house and the workers? But what's Lana's take?
I think that the idea is like maybe Lana is participating in Joel's wealth a little bit, or maybe Lana is taking a piece, like one way or the other, Lana takes like a bite. It's also Lana is probably, no disrespect to her, but she might be skimming a little bit the receipts.
Well, Joel says they grossed $8,000 in one night. Right. Mm-hmm. He says that a couple times. So we know the total the total amount of money grossed was $8,000.
Do we ever hear what the car bill is? I forget.
Less than that.
Okay. Yeah. Because he's got to have enough money to pay the car and pay off Guido.
I think he had like $4,000, so maybe the car bill is like $4,000. So if $50 goes to the house, we're going to say $100 per transaction.
Mm-hmm. So 50, yeah.
And they gross $8,000 in one night.
This is great. You're moneyballing this.
So that's 80 transactions.
Uh-huh.
I counted all the workers in the house.
You're the Paul D. Podesta of prostitution. Let's go.
It's either 11 or 12. So let's say 12. Let's go ambitious and say 12. 80 transactions. That's basically 6 2/3 each.
Uh-huh.
So each person at the house is 6 transactions total.
I don't know if like...
Does that seem high to you, I guess is my question.
I don't know if like an Old West saloon brothel would do those kinds of numbers on payday at a mine. Like that is crazy.
That's like farmer's market. It's like I'm going down to the farmer's market and picking up some corn and some fruit and and people are milling around. It just seems a little high. Or not high enough. 8,000, maybe they should have made like 15,000.
The second Joel's mom walks in, she's just like, what the fuck is that smell?
So 6 per person. Because they say at the end, the girls were exhausted.
Yeah.
I would imagine. Also, they rented beds.
Mm-hmm.
They rented a bunch of stuff. I'm sure there was like security there.
Refreshments. Yeah.
Yeah, refreshments. So that's like 2,000. It doesn't say with the tips. Like I'm guessing Rutherford tipped. Right? Rutherford's
Possible.
Like, hey, how much is 100? Here's 120. Thank you, Vicky. Still, the math just never added up to me. Okay. Sequel, prequel, prestige TV, all black cast are untouchable.
I touched on this with it being like a prequel to Eyes Wide, but I would like to see Joel in college and just what the aftermath is. And like one day at Princeton, Lana shows up.
What about Joel now? I was thinking a risky business sequel. Like we always want crews to take chances. Joel now in his 60s, retiring, and a bunch of people are at the party, and one of them is Lana.
Or like, I mean, isn't the idea Joel has like maybe, I guess he would be a little old to have a son. But, let's just say Joel got started.
Lana had a kid.
Well, or Joel has a kid now who's like, he's thinking about going away and his son is basically living out the 21st century version of risky business. The Ben Simmons story.
I'm in whatever version of the sequel you want to give me. Ben Simmons remaking Risky Business would probably be the winner. Is this movie better with Wayne Jenkins, Danny Trejo, Catherine Hahn, Steve Buscemi, Sam Jackson, Michael K. Williams, J.T. Walsh, Byron Mayo, Harling Mays, or Philip Baker Hall?
I thought Philip Baker Hall would be great as the Princeton admissions interviewer. As
Rutherford? Yeah.
I thought that would be really good. If Wayne Jenkins was in this movie, I think it would be, goddamn, Joel, I didn't know I was dealing with Super Pimp. You're a future enterpriser, but you're working the world's oldest profession. That's pretty ironic. You better get this house in order, though, and that motherfucking stupid egg better be back on the mantle, or you're going to community college a long fucking time, big boy. I may have blown out my mic, so if that doesn't work, we can just go with Philip Baker Hall.
Oh, my God. I would have loved Wayne. I think Byron Mayo would have also been great.
Yeah,
Joe. I love having all these ladies around.
It would be great if Byron popped out when Jackie had come over. Be like, Joel, don't say no before you know.
Joel, you don't know where you're going to like it till you try it, Joel. Harley Mays also would have been amazing.
Yeah, I need a credit
card.
Hey,
this party's winding down. It's running out of energy.
I need a credit card, a $100 bill.
Just one Oscar. Who gets it? I have Brickman for the screenplay.
I got a curveball and I go Tangerine Dream.
Oh, for soundtrack. I like it. I have 2 unanswerable questions. Do you have any?
Yeah.
What do you got?
Not going to do the whole, like, are we sure this happened? But, like, a lot of this movie is about fantasy and dreaming. So, like, especially the first sexual experience that he has with Lana, like, that's just ridiculous. Like, the door blows open, the leaves are blowing in, the American flag is blowing. Like, how much of this movie could you say is like his fantasy life coming to life to some extent? So that's always been interesting because like he spends so much time in his head dreaming. And then we talked about this before, but Lana and whether she intentionally sends the car into the lake.
Yeah, was Lana scamming Joel from the beginning? Was Miles a sociopath?
He is a dick.
All right, so Miles being the sociopath, when we did the Rounders podcast and Van had that theory that Worm was actually Max Cady in Cape Fear, every single action Miles has in this movie is to either undermine or destroy Joel.
Yes.
He doesn't offer him help in any way. He's a bad friend. To the bitter end at the party where he's like, I don't have to pay for it. Just almost seems like he wants to destroy Joel's life.
So he sets Joel up with Jackie and abandons him.
Eats the number, so he can't even call back.
Right. He essentially like it sounds like is tacitly approving of like Glenn going over to have sex with Vicky the first time. He's like kind of like leaving Joel in the dust where he's like, I'm into Harvard already, so take this advice or leave it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Miles is like, I wonder
terrible
if there's
friend.
A different version of the casting. Like Curtis Armstrong is amazing in this, but is Miles supposed to be like looking down his nose at Joel? Like, is that a character who's supposed to be preppier and like more kind of sadistic than Curtis Armstrong comes off? Because like that's the way it almost feels like it was written.
I think Miles is hilarious in this movie, but it also seems like he's like 35 years old.
Yeah, he was 28.
He seems so much older than everybody else.
He's got like stubble.
Right. Like at that point, just have Judd Nelson as Miles do one of those movies.
Harry Dean was right there. He was hanging out.
Harry Dean's he was swimming laps. They couldn't get him out of the pool. Best double feature choice with this movie. So I like The Eyes Wide Shut is a fun one. I got to say the All the Right Moves as following up with this. Just like here's Cruise in 1983, the early version of this guy who would become one of the biggest movie stars of all time.
I have Bueller, and I just think it's so cool to watch this in connection with Bueller and just see like everything Joel is doing is he's just like, I just have to make money. I have to be successful no matter what. And Bueller is like rejecting all of that and is like, I'm basically going to cheat the system. I just want to have fun. I don't give a shit. I want to stay a kid. It's just like a couple of years removed. And even like the music choices and things like that are different. It's such an interesting pairing.
Do you think younger people would watch this movie and be like, why is Joel so obsessed with being rich?
I think that they would just find it slow. honestly.
Oh man, it's so not slow.
But yeah,
it's
I think that like Joel's like life is like oriented around like that whole conversation that Joel and Barry and Glenn and the girl have in the restaurant in the beginning, where it's just like, like, don't you guys want to accomplish anything? And they're like, no, I want to make money.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty candid. It's pretty.
They're basically like Bud Fox from Wall Street could have been sitting at the table.
Yeah,
with them.
exactly.
Like, I'm going to chase down Gordon Gekko. The Andy and Red Zawantney Award. What happened the next day? What do you have for this? I have a good one.
Let me hear yours.
Lana eventually makes enough money to move to Hollywood. Dates Don Simpson. Starts out as kind of a hooker client relationship, but eventually turns into really starts dating and starts doing cocaine and dies of a cocaine overdose in 1986.
I would like to imagine a better future for Lana, but I think,
good.
Yeah, like I think
that I gave you the dark version of Lana.
That is definitely the darkest. She takes her proceeds from the yard sale and goes on a bus to LA.
She runs into the wrong guy, Don Simpson.
And it's just basically the Welcome to the Jungle video. Like,
right. What do you have?
I just think it's like Joel just like becomes Michael Milken, basically.
Does Joel actually go to Princeton?
Yeah. Yes. And crashes the stock market several years later.
What piece of memorabilia would you want from this movie? You can't say the Porsche.
I'll do the egg.
Yeah, the egg is the other obvious one. The Coach Finstock Award, Best Life Lesson.
Probably the easiest one we've ever had.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta say what the fuck. Yeah.
Cruz wins the movie, but Rebecca De Mornay is like is a really good silver medalist, and so is Brickman. Like two awesome silver medalists.
Yeah. I think you have to give it to Cruz because of what comes after, but in the moment, it's Brickman.
All right. Well, maybe on Monday, Craig can tape his little 2-minute reaction.
Yeah.
He is away for a wedding, but I had a great time. Jesse Lopez helped us producing. I didn't even know Jesse was producing podcasts anymore. I just thought he was just ready for the Dodgers 162-0 season. Jesse, are they going to lose a game this year? Like, what are your expectations?
They'll lose about 5 to 10 games, I'd say.
5-10 games. So you're looking at 150 wins?
Oh, yeah. Give or take.
What happens, though, if they come out of the gate slow and it's like, what if this was a huge mistake? Does Roberts get fired before, like...
Right.
No. You know what? Even before this season, before we got Ohtani, I didn't want Roberts back. I thought they'd run their course and needed something new. But then we got Shohei, and I was like, all right. But apparently, I have to see if this is true or not, because I vaguely remember reading this after Shohei signed. There's a clause in his contract that says if Robert leaves, Shohei can leave as well.
Oh, a key man clause. Interesting.
Yes. There's. I remember vaguely reading something about this because I was very upset because if the Dodgers don't win the World Series, or at the very least get to the World Series this year, Roberts has to leave. Like, something has to be done drastically at that point. And that's about the drastic thing you can do without, turning the team completely around.
I have that same clause, but it's for Solak.